Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Mayfield, and I'm the head of content here at Design Files. Today, we're chatting with Kate Bendewald, an interior designer turned mentor and the founder of Designers Oasis. Kate is going to be teaching us all about biophilic design and the science of creating beautiful spaces to help clients relax more and enjoy their homes. How are you doing today, Kate?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks, Deanna, for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. So before we dive into this topic, I'm just curious, like what sort of inspired you to want to cover this?
Oh, wonderful. Well, about 2 years ago, I was introduced to the concept of neuroaesthetics, which we're going to get into today, and biophilic design, and how design impacts our nervous system and our overall health and well-being. And this sort of timing wise with my own personal life was a time where I was going through some changes in my own life in terms of just health and well-being. And when I started to learn more about it, it's funny, it was I realized that it are intuitive things that I've been doing in design for a long time, but this actually gave me the language to talk about it with
Right,
clients, and it
right.
gave me the data and the research to back up what I've known intuitively. And I'm going to guess that a lot of the designers here today have this similar intuitive feeling about this stuff, whether what we talk about today is new to them or if this is maybe a refresher.
I love that. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, having more of that foundation to kind of like probably strengthen it even more.
Absolutely.
I love that. All right, well, we are going to dive right into it. So, everybody, as usual, if you have questions while Kate is presenting, feel free to put them in the chat. I will hop off and I will come back for Q&A. And
Okay.
then, Kate, I can also let you know like kind of what people are saying in the poll.
That would be great. Yeah, I can't because I can't see who's here or their comments at the moment.
Yes. Okay,
Cool.
so I will be hopping off and I will come back.
All right. Thanks, Diana. Hi, everyone. I am so glad you are here today. Thanks for having me. And again, thank you to Design Files for allowing me to come share and talk about a subject that is so close to my heart. And hopefully, this helps you to think about how the impact of your design work, how it impacts your clients' lives. So, today, we're talking about the science of beautiful spaces, how our environment shapes how we feel from a biological standpoint. So, as designers, I believe a lot of this will feel really validating for you for what you already do intuitively. But in this session, I'm going to help you to give you the language, the science, and honestly, the confidence to explain to clients what we already know instinctively, and that design profoundly shapes our health and happiness. Before we jump in, I want to ground us in something that should feel sort of universal. Does any of this feel familiar to you? The world is loud. We are overstimulated between news feeds and the constant need to be on screens, battling traffic and deadlines and pings and alerts on our phone. Um, this is all very real. We live in a very different world today than where our ancestors came from, and I believe the kind of world that we were meant to live in. Our clients feel this, we feel it. And whether they know it or not, people are craving spaces that help them to regulate and recover from all of this overstimulation. And this is where our work becomes not just aesthetic, but therapeutic. Now, contrast that noise with this image. This is where we came from. This taps into our innate, genetically encoded, rooted in nature, connection to nature. Okay. So just looking at an image of nature begins to shift the nervous system into a more relaxed state. You probably felt your shoulders drop a little, perhaps your breath changed and your mind softened. So what you just experienced is neuroaesthetics in real time. This is the brain responding to beauty and patterned natural stimuli, which we're going to talk about in a minute, before you even consciously registered it. So, have you ever walked into a space and you immediately felt something? Maybe you felt calm or comfort or energized or at ease before you could even explain it. Today, we're going to unpack why this happens so that you can design with even more intention and to articulate these effects with your clients. So, as designers, we intuitively know when a space feels quote unquote right? But intuition alone isn't enough. We need language. So often we don't have the words to explain why something works or why a client's home doesn't feel good yet. And so this is where neuroaesthetics comes in. It's going to give us the language and the science behind the magic. All right, so here's what we're going to learn today. First, we're going to talk about what is neuroaesthetics and why should we care. We're going to talk about how design, in particular interior design, impacts the nervous system, either positively or negatively. We're going to talk about three key principles three key principles of neuroaesthetics in design. These are backed by MRI studies that explain why spaces feel good. It's really fascinating science. And we're going to talk about how do we apply these ideas immediately in your projects with more confidence and with more clarity. So I would love to get a quick poll from you guys. So I'm curious to know how many of you are already familiar with the term neuroaesthetics. Put a Y in the chat if this is a familiar term for you, or N if this is a new term for you. Maybe you've heard it, but you're not really sure what it is. Go ahead and put it in the chat. And Diana, if you can tell me, I just want to get kind of a quick pulse on what our audience, what their understanding of this term is.
Okay. We are getting more no's.
Okay, actually, I can see the comments now.
Oh, you can? Oh, good. Oh, good.
Okay, so we've got a lot of no's, a couple of yeses, though, and I see Kristen is enrolled in the certification program now. Fantastic. All right, beautiful. Thanks, guys. How about biophilic design? Can you guys do the same yes or no? If biophilic design is a new concept to you, or if this is, okay. Trinkle Interior says, I hold my science and design certification and highly recommend it for those wanting to utilize this. Yes, I also have a science and design certification. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about this, I have a coupon code at the end where that I'll share with you if you want to look into their certification program. Okay, so it sounds like more of you are familiar with the term biophilic design. And so I will tell you that what I have learned over the last couple of years in terms of biophilic design was that my preconceived idea of what it was simply adding plants to a space, which, to be clear, is part of it. But there's so much more to it, and it's really interesting. So I'm excited to dig in there. Okay, let's keep going. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Kate Bendewald. I am the founder of Kate Bendewald Interior Design in Denver, Colorado, and also the founder of Designers Oasis, an online education and community hub for interior design business owners. So you can learn more about Designers Oasis at DesignFiles.co. From a young age, I understood, even before I had the words for it, that my surroundings deeply influenced how I felt. In particular, I think about my grandmother's house, it wasn't a particularly fancy home. It was well kept. It was beautiful. She did enjoy collecting antiques and really beautiful pieces of furniture. But there was just a natural ease to the space and a calm that I later discovered was neuroaesthetics at play. And this was a real major light bulb moment for me personally. This validated what always felt intuitive to me. And I will just say that I think that we're in good company here. That a lot of us as designers, this comes intuitively, but we have to understand that our clients, even though the benefits of neuroaesthetics and biophilic design is universal, knowing how to do it, how to apply these principles, how to organize a space in a way that feels calming, isn't necessarily intuitive for everyone. And this is why your work is really important. So I hope that today's talk inspires you to deepen your knowledge and apply what you've learned to your projects and have more confidence in communicating this with your clients. Okay, so let's start simple. What is neuroaesthetics? Neuroaesthetics is simply the science of how our brain responds to beauty and design. It explains why some spaces stress us out and others help us relax and breathe again. So it is really the intersection of neuroscience and art. It studies how elements like color and texture and lighting and form interact with our senses, right? Our what we see, what we smell, what we hear, and our brain activity to create experiences that are more than just visually pleasing. They are emotionally and physically impactful. Okay, it's about moving beyond aesthetics for the sake of beauty and tapping into the science of how our environments make us feel and function. So in short, it's the science behind why our work as interior designers really does matter. This quote from Dr. Claudia Miller says, "Architects and designers have a greater ability to improve public health than medical professionals." And I want you to think about that for a moment. I love this quote because it captures the truth that designers have an enormous influence on public health. We shape the environments people live their entire lives inside of. All right, so why should we care? First of all, I was astounded when I heard this statistic. 80% of doctor visits today have a stress component to it. So back to that picture earlier of traffic and buzzers and alerts and news feeds. We're overstimulated, right? So our environments can either add to that stress or it can help regulate it. Design is not just visual, it is biological. All right, so design is not neutral. It has the ability to influence how we feel. First, with stress reduction, also with boosting positivity. And by the way, all of this is backed by scientific studies. The Penn State for Neuroaesthetics is a really great resource that has tons of studies that on how this works and how our spaces influence our physiology. Boosting productivity and focus, social interaction, and better sleep. Okay, so I would love for anybody to put this, and if you're in the science and design program, you probably know this already, but what percent do you think our thoughts are conscious versus subconscious? What percent of our thoughts are subconscious? Anybody have a guess? You put it in the chat. Nobody want, just take a guess. You don't have to be, you're not getting graded on this. Whoop. So thank you, Dorothy, 80%. Yeah. 95% of our thoughts are actually subconscious. That's insane. So 5% of our thoughts are conscious in our body's responses. So when we come into a space, the brain is not asking, is this stylish? It's asking, is this safe? Is this pleasurable? Okay, so this is what neuroaesthetics is really founded on. Our brain's job is to recognize patterns, right? So what happens when information like sights and sounds and smells enter into our brains, right? They are immediately filtered into two categories. Either exciting, which is survival, which is a picture that you see on the left, or avoid, which is, exciting, which is the avoid pattern or survival, or beautiful, which is approach. So avoid or approach is what our brain is telling us. This is called pattern recognition, and it's evolutionary. The ancestors who survived on the savannah were the ones who could recognize patterns. They would know when a storm is coming or when there was a threat and when to retreat, right? So again, for example, you're seeing these clouds, dark clouds rolling in, you know, I need to avoid that, I need to retreat. Or if there's blue skies, the birds are chirping, you're safe. So our brain is constantly on guard for seeking patterns to avoid or approach. It's encoded into our DNA to feel pleasure from this. This is how we survived as ancient humans. But today this happens instantly and subconsciously. And it's that subconscious piece that's really important, right? Because sometimes our avoid reaction happens unnecessarily, and that's our primitive brain trying to keep us safe, right? And that doesn't mean that there's always a bear chasing us, but sometimes our body doesn't know the difference if a bear is chasing us or if a room or a space is designed in a way that it's causing discomfort. Okay. All right, so we're gonna get into a little bit of biology here. I think this is really fascinating. So we're gonna talk about the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS system. The ANS system controls involuntary bodily functions. So heart rate, digestion, breathing, blood pressure, for example. So it's made up of two distinct streams of information: the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, or your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. And that's where we want to be. We want to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So these systems directly affect our health and our sense of well-being, either positively or negatively. All right, so let's dig into this a little bit more. There are always these two systems at play, right? We've got the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. When the brain senses a threat, such as visual disorder, harsh lighting, or confusing layout, the sympathetic system activates. This is activating our survival instinct. This is activating our avoid instinct, right? This makes me think of, very often I will go into, I do designer for a day sessions for clients often, and I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a space and people are like, I just don't know what to do with this. It doesn't feel right. And simply rearranging furniture, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, that made a huge difference. Now I have a view to the outside, or this feels more balanced, or whatever. It's just simply rearranging something from something that felt confusing and disorderly to something that feels balanced and instantly helps you to feel better. Right, so that's when an environment feels coherent and comforting, the parasympathetic system steps in. This is when the body heals and rests and digests and restores. So the sympathetic response pumps out different hormones and chemicals in our body. Typically, this is adrenaline and cortisol, right? So adrenaline is the hormone that says run for your life because there's a bear chasing you, and cortisol, which is what happens when we feel stressed out. On the opposite side of that, when the parasympathetic response, excuse me, when the parasympathetic response gets activated, this starts to release those chemicals and hormones in our body that help us to feel good. So this is my favorite trio: endorphins, dopamine, and oxytocin. Okay, so again, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin. These are the same chemicals, the same hormones that are released when you experience gentle physical touch, or singing, or playing with your pets, or listening or playing music, laughter, sex, meditation, exercise, right? So think about this for a second. The environments that we create have the ability to release the same hormones and have the same impact as all of those wonderful things that I just listed there. So that's a pretty powerful thing to be able to manipulate. So again, looking at these, we can look at what are the causes for the two different systems. We have in the sympathetic nervous system increased anxiety, higher stress levels, elevated heart rate. And in the parasympathetic system, we can experience lowered blood pressure. Again, this is all backed by science. Lowered heart rate. It activates cellular repair, right? This is the stuff that keeps cancer at bay. And it can optimize immunity and improved cognition. So design that overwhelms the senses keeps people stuck and in stress mode. Design that supports ease literally boosts immunity, cognition, and longevity. And so again, this is why our work is health work. Amy says, lighting has such a big impact. You could not be more correct. All right, and then lastly, we're going to talk a little bit more about these, but these are the avoid patterns versus approach patterns. I'm not going to get into each one of those because we're going to dig into them a little bit more as we move forward. Okay, so here's the truth. Design always pushes the nervous system in one direction or the other. So harsh lighting, chaos, cold materials, you're activating the stress hormones. Warmth, order, natural materials, that's going to create a sense of calm. Nothing we put into a space is neutral. You as designers have a choice, and those choices impact the health and well-being of the occupants. I love this quote because it reframes our work. We are not just decorating. We are shaping daily experience, behavior, and health outcomes. And that is an incredible responsibility and opportunity. All right, so before we move into the next section, I want to just ask you guys a question. Chime in the comment section below. I want you to think about a space that makes you feel at ease. This could be a real space or an imagined space. And tell me, what are the characteristics in your mind of these spaces? Drop your comments in the chat below. What does it look like? What are the materials? What is the lighting like? Are there views? And if so, to what? I want to hear, what as designers do you feel are the characteristics of these spaces? And I'll give you guys a minute to respond. Dorothy says Populous Hotel. Yes. Are you talking about the one in Colorado, in Denver? Dorothy, I think you said you were in Durango. Yeah. All right, I'm going to give you guys just a minute. I think there's a little bit of a delay. So Dorothy is talking about the Populous Hotel, which if you're ever in Denver, is a really beautiful hotel that was designed with, the entire hotel was designed with biophilic principles at the heart of it. And it's a really lovely place. And they have a coffee shop and a restaurant too. Okay, Dina says a space that has layers of textures, plants, warm and earthy colors, soft and warm lighting, lots of natural light. Yes, lighting is so important. Deborah says my living room, bright sunlight, views of trees, natural furniture and sky, curves and wood. Yes, those curves are really important. We see natural curvatures in nature all the time, and anytime we can soften lines with curves, that does have a calming effect on our body. Lori says my living room, it has items that calm me, look out to see trees, my grandma's collectible glass, natural elements, and my sister's artwork. Wonderful. Yeah, so you guys definitely are understanding the impact of how these spaces that make you feel calm and at ease, that now we have the science that can explain why we feel this way in these kinds of spaces. Thank you all for those of you who've chimed in here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 3 key principles of neuroaesthetics in design. Okay, these are the 3 foundational principles that guide how our spaces affect our emotional and cognitive well-being. So number 1, coherence. Number 2 is fascination, and we're going to dive into each of these a little bit more. And number 3 is hominess. Okay, so these are the 3 principles that serve as the blueprint for designing interiors that promote comfort, engagement, and a sense of belonging. All right. So how do we know this? There was a 2020 study that used MRI studies of the brain and identified these three factors, hominess, coherence, and fascination, as having a significant impact on the very primitive part of the brain that shows pleasure and reward. So that the parts of the brain that you see that are lit up here, those are what are considered ancient parts of the brain, and that really is the part of the brain that has taps into the pleasure reward system of the brain that lights up, tapping into that very old core, very primitive part of the brain that we experience with food and sex. Okay. Oh, whoop. Hold on. Oh, right. I was going to just also mention that one of the things that I think is the most important and most fascinating about this is that all of this is happening on a subconscious level, right? 95% of our thoughts and our bodily responses are subconscious, and so this really makes sense there. All right, so let's dig into each of these just a little bit more. So, what is coherence? Coherence is all about creating order and ease. It's about how easily the brain can understand a space. If a room is visually confusing, the brain has to work harder. But if a room is well organized and it's intuitive, the brain relaxes and it's at ease and it brings calm. So let's talk about coherence in practice, right? Oh, pardon me. So when we look at this space, first of all, there's not a lot going on, but there's something happening with the range hood that feels off and the lighting up top that sort of goes into nowhere. And there's just some things that are happening here that if I'm sitting in this space is really going to make me feel a little bit off kilter. So how do we practice coherence in the real world? We're looking at things like harmonious color palettes, attention to undertones. This is a real important one and something that clients get wrong all the time. And this is why you as a designer can really have a big impact. I'll tell you, we bought a house in Texas a number of years ago. And when we bought it, the countertop was a marble countertop and had these cool undertones. And the previous owner had put in these backsplash tiles that had very warm undertones. And both of them by themselves were fine and pretty, but together it was just off and it drove me insane until we were able to do something about it. But this is just one of those things that designers, I think, intuit more than typical homeowners. Also, logical furniture arrangements, making sure that there's a flow to the space and that there's a natural rhythm, clear circulation, and storage systems. All right, number 2 is fascination. So fascination is the quality that pulls you in. It's that spark. This is what keeps the brain engaged without overstimulating it. So you want to think of what is going to provide visual interest and depth and just the right amount of complexity to a space. Let's talk about fascination in practice. So looking at this blank space, there's really nothing that draws the eye in. There's maybe a little bit of texture, but this is really just a white box with a whole lot of opportunity, right? So how do we employ fascination in practice? First, we're looking at art and pattern. We're looking at layered and flexible lighting. We're looking to add visual depth and texture and biophilic sensory moments. Biophilic design really is about incorporating and touching on all of the senses. Not just what we see, but where do we hear? What do we smell? What do we touch? Maybe not what we taste. We'll leave that to the chefs. All right. And then third, we have hominess. I thought it was interesting that hominess was considered a scientific term in this way, and they were able to sort of define it, right? So hominess is more than just being cozy. This is about that deep feeling of belonging, where the body feels safe enough to settle. Hominess activates that parasympathetic system and invites softness. So I always like to think about homes and the spaces we design, not just in terms of how is it going to make the homeowner feel, right? We want the homeowner to feel at ease and comfort most of all, but also how do their guests feel? When guests come over, do they naturally know where to put their put their bag, or where they can have a seat, or pull up a chair. And so we want not only our homeowners to feel that, but also their guests. Doing this supports the parasympathetic nervous system. So let's look at hominess in practice. We are looking for rich texture stories. We're looking for warm lighting temperatures, personal objects with meaning. This is really important, especially when you see faces of people that you love. We're going to get into this in a little bit. And then also homes that feel lived in and not staged. Okay, so come back to me if you are multitasking, because this is really important. If you forget everything else today, I want you to remember this. There are 3 principles of neuroaesthetics. Number 1 is coherence, which is order. Number 2, which is fascination or interest. And 3, which is hominess or comfort. So thoughtful design that balances all 3 feels effortless, it feels alive, and it feels deeply human. Okay. So now we're going to talk about something that I find particularly fascinating. We're talking about the 3x3 pattern and facial recognition. So this pattern shows up in architecture, art, and most importantly, the human face. Our brains are hardwired to respond positively to it. It's a pattern that is subconsciously perceived as beautiful and comforting. And this is rooted in evolution. Okay, so you'll see this framework everywhere. The Parthenon, the Taj Mahal, the Pantheon, these buildings endure because they feel inherently harmonious. And the brain recognizes these patterns and says, yes, it's safe. So if we look at this, you can see each one of these examples of these different iconic architectural moments. You can see this 3x3 pattern exhibited in all of them. So these examples highlight how universal this pattern is across all cultures and centuries. So no matter the style, the underlying geometry stays consistent because our brains crave it. Why is that? Our brains are wired to seek comfort in patterns. Spaces that follow these patterns feel safer, more pleasing, more at home. And when a space reflects these patterns, even loosely, the brain starts to relax. This relates to facial recognition, or what we call the primal pattern. As infants, we search out faces for safety and bonding. And when we're first born, our vision isn't fully formed. So we have to find these patterns that help us to feel a sense of safety and security. It's how we bond. It's how we develop love and pleasure and empathy. So when we see a face like symmetry or balance in a room, it rewards our brain. Hi, Tranquil Interiors. Thank you so much. Yes, and Lori, I have the Fibonacci sequence as a tattoo on my leg that I got in college because I intuitively connected with that concept. Thanks for sharing. All right, so that instinct never fully leaves us. Our subconscious brain is constantly looking for faces in everything we see. These are faces that are all in my photo stream, my photo library. I have a girlfriend who, she and I, every time we see a face in a thing like this, we text it to each other just because this conversation came up. But this is baked into our DNA, right? Even as adults, our subconscious brain tries to find faces in objects, in architecture, in layouts, in anything. It's why certain spaces feel instantly comforting. We are pattern-seeking creatures that crave that familiarity. If any of you are wondering what that thing is on the left, that's my husband's mother. Not my mother-in-law, his kombucha that he makes, the mother for his kombucha. And I saw that and I was like, that thing's disgusting and I see a face. All right, moving on. This is really fascinating and this supports this idea of seeing faces everywhere. So this is a study that was led by Susan Sussman called the House Experiment that illustrates this point. So they asked people from all over the world. You can see we've got Turkey, India, Italy, and so on, to draw a house as if they were a 5-year-old. And they revealed that regardless of people's geolocation, the majority of the homes were drawn with a 3x3 pattern, or the primal pattern that looks like a face with 2 eyes and a mouth. So why does this matter? It's what we're meant to see. It's what makes us feel good and safe and secure and, well, at home. So no matter their background, they were all expressing the same thing. So that's how deep this wiring goes. So when a space echoes this primal pattern, it activates the parasympathetic system, that rest and digest state. It increases those feel-good hormones, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin. And this is why the right architecture feels healing. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this portion on neuroaesthetics, and we're going to start to talk a little bit about biophilic design, and then we will have a little time for some questions at the end. But before we go on, I want you to do something with me. So if you're multitasking, just come back to me for a moment. I want you to sit back for a second and unclench your jaw if you need to. Half of you just realized you were clenching your jaw. Drop your shoulders a little bit and just take a deep, slow breath in. So you probably just felt a little bit of a shift in your body and in your biology. Maybe you realized that you were holding on just a little bit tensely to whatever it is you were doing. And we get into that state subconsciously so many times. But this is why this works. It creates a literal nervous system shift. And this is how you can directly connect to design's power. All right, so we are going to move into biophilic design, which is helping us understand our innate connection to nature. So think about this for a moment. We've spent 99% of our human history in nature. But now today, we spend 90% of our time indoors. So biophilic design is how we can bridge that gap. It reintroduces the cues that our brains have evolved with. So our brains are hardwired to respond positively to natural elements. Hundreds of thousands of years of survival depended on being in environments that provided us with food and water and a sense of safety. So caves, for example, were a place of refuge in extreme weather and other threats. And this ties into a concept called prospect and refuge, which I think is really fascinating. And we'll touch a little bit more on that in a moment. Natural light helped us to regulate our circadian rhythms and our sleep-wake cycles. Bird song signals safety and a lack of threats. Think about that for a second. So you're in the wild and the birds are chirping. Everything feels relaxing and safe. And all of a sudden the birds stop chirping and it gets quiet. What does that mean? That means that there's probably a threat looming. And so subconsciously for the primitive brain and from an evolutionary standpoint, that bird song signals a sense of safety and a lack of threat. Same thing with the sound of running water, right? So you can go days without food, but you can't go days without water. So the sound of running stream means access to safe drinking water, which means you're going to live another day. So today our primitive brain finds comfort in nature-like surroundings, which is going to help us to reduce stress and improve focus. All right, so health benefits of biophilic design. This is all grounded in sound research and scientific studies. So studies show that viewing nature, whether it's through a window or through indoor plants, reduces blood pressure and promotes cardiovascular health. A 2019 study published in the Environmental Research found that 20 minutes in a green space significantly lowers blood pressure and pulse rate. Exposure to natural elements lowers cortisol, which is, again, the hormone for stress, which leads to a more calm and relaxed state. Improved mood and cognition. So this is from a study in the physiological anthropology, found that even touching a plant for a few minutes reduces stress more effectively than interacting with a screen. This is why I love my plant care time. It feels very calming for me. All right, and increased creativity and focus. So natural light, greenery, and organic materials have been linked to increased serotonin and dopamine levels, which improves mood and mental clarity. There was a study that looked at office spaces that were designed with biophilic principles have shown a 15% increase in productivity and creativity. And this is research done by Human Spaces. Okay, so now you know that our brains are wired to seek comfort in patterns, right? We've established that. There are 3 ways that we can use biophilic design to create spaces that feel safer, more pleasing, and more at home. So the first is nature in the space. So this is a very literal interpretation of biophilic design. It's literally bringing plants or plant life or greenery into a space. By the way, on these examples, I'm using imagery from John Legend and Chrissy Teigen's home, which was featured in Architectural Digest. Jake Arnold, who is an amazing interior designer, was the designer on this project, and it is truly, truly a beautiful space. So again, nature in the space is the most literal approach. This may include bringing real plants in or water features into the space. Number 2 is nature represented. So this is using natural materials and motifs. So in this case, we're not looking at the side of a mountain or a cliff, but we are looking at this natural stone material that is wrapping this space entirely, right? So it is achieved by selecting natural materials such as stone or wood or even wallpaper with natural motifs. And then the third one is nature of the space. So again, an example of this would be prospect and refuge, which I have another picture I'm going to share with you here in a second. So nature of the space is creating spatial characteristics of nature. So prospect and refuge theory is a concept that explains why certain spaces feel engaging and safe at the same time. So this is rooted in our evolutionary history. It describes the balance between having a clear view of our surroundings, which is prospect, while also feeling protected, refuge. So this is that, any of you go to a restaurant and you insist on finding the chair that puts your back to the wall or faces the door or faces the majority of the restaurant. That's me. My husband thinks that I was a Wild West gun shooter in a past life. Because I have to have an eye on the door. But this is really rooted in our evolutionary history. It's just what makes us feel safe, and by being surrounded, being able to see out to our surroundings. Deborah says, I just put on a recording of bird songs in the background and I've already calmed down and stopped multitasking. I love that, Deborah. Yes, I will sometimes put on bird song in the morning when my girls are getting dressed for school, and it helps them to feel more at ease and calm. So folks, we have some small choices can really have big impacts. The subconscious brain doesn't know the difference between looking at wood of a tree versus wood on the table. It has the same effect on that primitive subconscious brain, right? What if we started being more intentional about the material choices that we made, the shapes we bring in, the layouts we plan, the lighting we provide, so that these choices can help activate the parasympathetic nervous system? So here's the bottom line. Design is not just aesthetic. We are shaping emotional and physical experience every single day. Neuroaesthetics gives us the language and the framework behind what we already do intuitively. Design doesn't just change how a space looks. It changes how people feel in their bodies. I just got goosebumps. Anybody else? Right? This is high value work. And when you can start to really understand this and embody this, and hopefully after today, have some language to talk about this with your clients, you can start to sell your ideas better to a client, because you're going to be able to explain to them how and why these design choices are so important for them, right? Okay, so I think we are near the end, and I would love to bring on some questions. So if you want to go a bit deeper, I've created a free resource bundle with some book recommendations. So I put on there a link to all my favorite books related to this topic. I've got some information about Science and Design, which is a certification program that you can take, and it will teach you more about neuroaesthetics and biophilic design. And there's a coupon code for $100 off their program if you're interested in doing that. And then I've also got a couple blog posts that I've written and some more information. So if you just want like a nice little bundle to sort of like start to dip your toes a bit more in this topic, this would be a wonderful place for you to start. All right.
That's so fun. That was really fun. I loved, like I just felt relaxed looking at the images.
It's funny how that works. I know.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, like, how does this come into client conversations? Like, do you, like, in terms of like communicating like the value of what you do, or does that come in?
You know, it depends on the clients. Amy, the code is in the download. So if you download the resource, you'll find all that information there. I have, so for example, right now I have a couple, they're both in medicine. So they, read about this on my website and they just shared some curiosity about it. But as we've begun working together, they're super interested in the science behind it. And so with those clients in particular, I share more about why we're choosing making certain decisions and design decisions, and for them, it's a much bigger part of the conversation. For other clients, maybe who are less interested in the science behind it, but they're curious about it, it'll come up, especially if we're talking about, maybe if I'm expressing, this is the reason that we chose to reorient this layout this way, because it's going to give you a better view to I can't tell you how many homes I walk into and people have their sofas with their back to the window. And I'm like, let's not do that. So, but it really ties in a lot with explaining our design choices and how it can have an impact on them.
Yeah, very cool. Somebody's asking, have you had clients with autism? Like, have you had any like neurodivergent clients, and that this played into like the work?
Yeah. Amy, this is a great question, because you'll in the science design program, you definitely learn that neurotypical people and folks with autism definitely have different responses to their environments. For example, the autistic community doesn't necessarily respond the same way to the facial recognition piece, the same way that neurotypical people. And also, to that point, people who are designers typically have a stronger reaction to the facial recognition than maybe somebody like my husband. So I haven't personally had a client who is on the spectrum that I know of, but I know that is something that changes for people specifically with autism.
Yeah. Somebody else commented, don't overlook taste. For example, if you have a client who is sensitive to fragrances, they may actually be able to taste the candle you've added to the room.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Taste, not like in style, but in the
the scent. I thought that too at first. Yeah. The scents. What are other ways to like play on taste, I wonder? That's probably tricky.
It's the senses are really fascinating. I mean, speaking of John Legend, there are people who can, with certain sounds, they see color, right? And so there are certain brains that are the sensory inputs can have some crossover. There's a term for that, a scientific term. I don't know what it is, but it's really fascinating. So she's absolutely right that there can be particularly sensitive people who have some of that crossover. So it's really important, though, that you do a real good deep dive with your clients as you're getting started with them, and trying to dig out a little bit more and understand what those sensitivities might be. And that's a big part of our discovery process.
Yeah. Any other questions? We're getting a lot of positive feedback that it was interesting and great tips to implement.
Yeah, I see that Twinkle Interiors has this comment about making it a part of its core message and brand and differentiator in our market. And I think you're spot on here. We've done the same thing, and it really does help. I think validate the work that we do when, a lot of times our clients aren't coming to us knowing that this is something that we do. We're trying to change that. This is still fairly new, but to our branding and marketing. But I will tell you more times than not, it's been the difference between us getting a project and another designer getting a project, because we're asking the kinds of questions to clients that are potential clients that are drawing out information that they may wonder, or often will wonder at first, like, why is she asking me this question? And so I can start to help clients understand that we're not just here to make a space look good. It will do that. We will do that. And it's going to be beautiful and it's going to reflect you, but it's also going to make you feel really good. It's going to help you feel at peace and calm, or energized. We ask our clients, how do they want to feel in a space? Because some people do want to feel like it's a retreat, where other people do want it to feel more energizing and like a creative space. And so that is definitely a part of our discovery process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
Stephanie,
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Stephanie has a question about the Science and Design course. You can find scienceanddesign.com is the website. If you download our resource guide here, we do have a coupon code in there for you if you're interested in that course, as well as some other resources.
Yeah, interesting. And then Tranquil Interiors is saying that there's more than 5 senses. Neuroaesthetics helps you understand that. There's proprioception, vestibular, and interoception. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I think we're more like, I don't know, intuitive or powerful than we think, right? We're picking up more than we realize, right? Like we think I'm just seeing this or whatever, but I think we're picking up a lot more than we even know.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think about my daughter right now, who is in the 4th grade, and her classroom last year, her teacher was, her classroom was, well, I'm going to put this in my 9-year-old's terms. She goes, her classroom was like heaven, and this year my classroom is like hell. And that's her 9-year-old terms. But her 3rd grade classroom was filled with plants and crystals and dim lighting, and it was extremely comfortable, and the layout made sense. And no shade to the 4th grade teachers, they're wonderful teachers, but the environment that they've created, it doesn't have that component. And when I first walked into the class, I was immediately struck by how sterile it felt. And I thought to myself, well, maybe they're leaving it blank so that they can create space to hang up art as they get into the classroom. And that just hasn't happened. And I realized that they just don't have that ability the way that designers do to intuit what feels really good. I'd love to get my hands on that classroom, but yeah. But my daughter really struggles with being in this particular classroom because she doesn't feel at ease there.
Right. That makes sense. And I'm guessing if she's living in your house, she's getting some nice design in her normal life. So she's be like, wait a second.
Yeah, that's right. You'll recover when you get home, kiddo. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Let's see. Amy is asking, I don't know if she's asking about your course. Do you give assignments you can apply the knowledge? Or what is she asking about?
Yeah, Amy, the Science and Design course lays out all of that information, but yeah, there's little quizzes as you go. But I am doing a lot more blogging and content creation on my Kate Bendewald website, which is also linked in this resource. So, but also in Designer's Oasis, which we have a membership. By the way, we are doing a short little like doors open moment over the next week. So if you're interested in joining our membership, we do talk about this and applying these principles in practice in our monthly group calls. So we also talk about it a lot in Designer's Oasis. We have a community of designers who, many of which are passionate about this and we have lot of designers that come from the healthcare background, and they are really starting to integrate this into their design work and their branding. And so just as someone who's passionate about helping designers have a really clear sense of who they are and who you serve so that you can really flourish and thrive in your business. I think it's really important to set yourself apart in whatever way feels the most meaningful for you. And this is something that has clearly struck a chord for me.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it could make for such good website copy too, because I know a lot of designers can struggle with the copy because, you're visual and you're like, here's my portfolio. And when we do website audits, we see that a lot where there's a lot of imagery, but it can be very like sparse on the copy. So being able to talk about like the benefits, right, in like kind of like a scientific way, I think that could probably be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say too, this isn't just, I see that I have a friend who's a trauma-informed specialist. I think that that's a wonderful example of niching down and getting really specialized. But the reality is that you don't have to seek out a specific type of client. I mean, we want to have ideal clients, right? That's important. But within that, you don't have to be serving necessarily neurodivergent clients. Most people, as we said earlier, 80% of doctor's visits have some sort of stress component. So this is just like everyday people who are struggling to deal with all of the inputs that we have going on. But also people like me who are ADHD and can be very overstimulated by environments that aren't conducive to calm and relaxation and that sort of thing. So I fall in that neuroatypical group myself, and can see the benefits of how these principles have impacted me personally. So
Yeah,
thank
totally.
you.
Makes sense. Awesome. Well, I think that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for this awesome presentation. Thank you for bringing such a unique and impactful topic to us. We'll definitely have to have you back next year. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much. I enjoyed being here. You guys feel free to keep in touch. Find me at DesignFiles.co. I'll see you guys real soon. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.